Coming up on today's episode.
I want my client to be confident. I don't want to take a property and just give it to them. This is it. They should be confident. They should make an educated decision over here.
Yep.
All right. Yes, it takes time in that for me to explain it to them. In that way, they are confident. Every decision will have good and bad. The idea is you want a decision with the least bad things in it. Yeah.
Dodgy advice and bad decisions can cost you big in real estate. We're here to make sure that that doesn't happen. Welcome to the No B.S. Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jo Agresta, and it's time to take control of your property journey together.
Hi, everyone. It's Rishi here from Investvise Buyers Agency on the No B.S. podcast over here. Let's just get into it and start unpacking it.
Welcome back, everyone, to the No B.S. Real Estate Podcast, your listening how-to guide to the Aussie finance and real estate market. I'm your host, Jo Agresta. Now, today, we're talking about two big decisions investors face. First, how do you choose between two investment properties when both look good on paper? And second, if you've held a property for years, how do you know whether it's time to scale, refinance, hold, sell, or just leave things as they are? Because smart investing isn't just about finding a good property, it's about knowing whether that property fits your finance position, your goals, your risk level, and your next move. And to help us unpack all of this, I'm joined by Rishi from Investvise. Rishi works with investors to make smarter, more strategic property decisions, looking at the bigger picture across location, cash flow, finance, risk, and long-term portfolio planning. So without further ado, Rishi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you very much for inviting me and being over here as a guest.
Oh, I'm so excited that we made the trip up to Sydney. We're sitting here in beautiful Seaforth in the van that we travelled with, and I'm just so excited to actually have you here in person. I think this was a much better first episode.
I know. I think we've been having a chat for a while.
Yes.
And personally, yes, there are some online platforms, but having a face-to-face is totally different.
It just doesn't beat it. Like I always say, catching up face-to-face, you get a different vibe. The conversation flows different.
Yep.
So always when I have, because we're going to do a couple of episodes together. So the first one, I thought if we can just nail in person, it'll really set the tone for the rest of our episodes.
Beautiful. Let's dig into it. So, Rishi, first thing I'm going to bring up, all right, is you've just won an award or your team at Investvise. Congratulations. Tell us a little bit about that award. Absolutely. So it's been a couple of awards that we've been nominated. We were nominated for Western Sydney Awards for Business Excellence last year, and then early this year into Real Estate Reb Awards as Buyers Agent of the Year. And then we were nominated for Australian Buyers Agents Award. That's a debut. And in the category of research and acquisition. Now, research and acquisition is the backbone of any property journey. You can have the best of the strategy you have, but if you buy a lemon property, it's a lemon property.
Yep.
The research becomes very important. And that's our team did, the acquisition team did. And we won gold in that. So I'm really, really excited and happy for that.
I'm so thrilled because it's so exciting when you win that recognition because like any business owner or profession, you set out to do well. That's one thing and help your customers. But when you get that recognition in the factor of an award, especially for the category that, is acquisition, that's the backbone, like you said. If you get that part wrong, it's pretty bad.
Yeah,
so it's like bad investing, lemon properties, like you said. So I'm just thrilled and I'm very, very excited for you. So well done.
And see, to be honest, this award is not for me, not for my team. Sorry, team. It's not for my company. It goes to all our agents and networks that we work with. Without them, this was not possible. Getting off-market deals and to my clients who trusted us. And now they could see how the properties have gone well ahead. So it goes to them, to be honest.
I love that. Beautiful message. And just a great way to start this episode, I think. I had to add that in. And, Rishi, I think for the natural first starting point, like we always would love to get to know a bit more about you and Investvise. So for listeners that haven't come across you before, which I'd be very shocked if you guys haven't, can you give us the quick version? Tell us about yourself, about Investvise, and who you typically help.
So about myself, in a very quick 30-second, I grew up in India, Nigeria, moved to New Zealand, and now in Australia here. I've traveled a lot, and I've got property investments myself. My journey started at the age of 24. That's when I bought my first property.
Wow.
And then now I'm here. Being a hustler, I always like to do what else can I do in my spare time.
And what I help is kind of not even help. I would say I guide everyday Australians, be professional or tradies or anybody, how we can use property as a tool for wealth generation.
Yeah.
Besides shares and super, that's cherry on the top. But how can I use some product or asset that is working for me even when I'm sleeping? And that's property.
Property is a great asset class to deal with, especially for the wealth creation. And there's so many ways that you can use it in different strategies or different approaches to have it work for you. So this is exactly what I'm excited to dig in with you today. I guess when investors typically come to you, Rishi, are they usually starting from scratch, or are they often people who already own a property and they're trying to work out their next move?
It's a mixed bag. So we get first-time investors. We get people who are rent vesting.
And that's a big one at the moment.
Absolutely. We get people who have already invested and they want to invest for their kids, or who have reached stuck in their portfolio and they want to scale it. Some of them who have gone to other buyers agents who are really big, but they're stuck with them, with their promises, and they can't move anywhere. So yeah, it's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag. And who's the kind of cohort that you have like a bit of a soft spot for, that you're always you find that you really want to help?
First-time investors.
Yeah.
I'll be very honest. Reason being, two reasons. Number one, they're very naive. Number two, they really want to.
Yeah.
But there's so much noise out there. They just need a proper guidance.
Yeah, it's true.
A lot of hand-holding. Why? I have been through it.
Yeah, it makes a big difference when you work with someone who's not just offering to help, but they've been in your shoes. They've scaled their own portfolios, or they've invested poorly the first time, learnt from those mistakes, done it again, or pivoted. And I think that's where the value is with someone like yourself, dealing with the level of experience that you do have. It's invaluable to someone who then works with you, because you're going to be able to guide them in a very, very different way to your uncles at the barbecue, your aunties at the barbecue that give you the advice and say, you know what I did, you should buy there. And you're like, oh no, who are you listening to?
These, trust me, barbecue talks are great to have, especially when you're a couple of beers down and drinks down. There are the great conversations, but the worst advice or worst strategies to be made or used.
Yeah, it's usually from like the strategies they used in the 80s or 70s, and they're just passing it on. And I guess, what do you think separates, a genuinely strategic investor from someone who's just buying their first property because they've been told that's what they should do?
Great. It's a good thing to invest. The three things that really differentiate them. Number one is emotions. All right. When the first-time investor comes, he just comes with that mindset, reading that or listening to people, oh, you have to invest where you can go and live and all that stuff, which is a good thing. But if you're living in Sydney or Melbourne and you're buying regional, you're not going to go and live there. So number one is emotions. Number two is a solid understanding of cash flow. When you've invested, even for the first property, you go to second or third, you start understanding the concept of you've tasted investment.
It gets you excited too. You get into this rush of wow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So emotions, understanding of cash flows, and number three, where barbecue talks. People get buyed in by others' stories. Now, let's say both of us are here, both have investment properties. Your journey number 3 would be my journey number 1 property.
Yeah.
Or your second would be my 5th. So it's never apples for apples. So these 3 things really differentiate between both of them.
That's actually a very interesting way to put it, because it's true. The advice I might give someone based on my personal portfolio and they're trying to get into the market, I'm talking to them on property number 3.
Yeah.
They're talking to me at property number 1 or property 0.
Absolutely.
So it's totally different comparison and structure of conversation.
Yeah. You might be on property number 3 where cash flow doesn't matter. You're just looking more on growth.
That's right.
Or, either or. But it's not necessary what the first-time investor has a strategy. It's totally different.
It's true. And this is exactly what we're here to break down and what I really want to unpack today, because I think a lot of investors are told to do their research, but there's no real foundation for, well, what does that mean? Do your research? What are we looking at, right? It's like, look at the numbers, but they're actually then sitting there, let's say with 2 properties in front of them, and they're either trying to decide whether to buy again, and then, they're holding, or do they hold it for years? Do they keep moving?
can be really hard to know what the right advice or the right, strategy is. So I want to put out, before we go any further, our no BS statement of the day. Now, for those that are new on the show, this is where we throw out a bit of a spicy statement, not weighted for or against. And at the end of the episode, we're going to have Rishi determine whether that's bullshit or not. So we're going to put him in the hot seat. Today's statement is, if the numbers stack up and the bank says you can afford it, that's enough reason to buy or scale. So we're not going to answer that yet. We're going to come back at the end and determine, based on our conversation, is that true or not? So I think this is probably the best place to start with a listener story. So this was a story that was submitted to us by a listener. When we caught up earlier, or last week, I said to you, would you be open to covering this? And you said, yeah, absolutely. What are the details? I'm like, all right, I'll tell you limited. And now we're going to break it down. So shout out to that listener. Now, you have asked to stay anonymous, so no problem. We're just going to read your story verbatim for how you sent it to me. Yeah. And it says, I'm looking at 2 investment properties and both seem like strong options. One has a better rental yield. The other seems to have better long-term upside. They're both within budget, but I'm struggling to work out which one is actually the better investment. How do I make that decision? All right, Rishi, let's treat this like a real investor scenario. When someone has 2 strong investment options in front of them, what's the first thing that you're looking at from the property perspective and comparing properties to themselves?
So they've got the Mr. or Miss Anonymous has property to buy, and one has better rental yield, and one has better capital growth. See, before we even go there, the very first important thing is having a look at both the properties at a macro level.
Yeah.
When I say macro level, it means, are they located in the same region? Are they into different regions? In that region at a macro, what is the infrastructure? How much is the government spending over there? What are the market indicators over there for it to grow? What's going to affect it? What's the demographic? Are there more units, more houses? In which cycle of growth it is? All right. When I say cycle of growth means, is it an early adapter, which means it has got all the indicators for growth, good supply, demand has not yet roared at the moment, population is moving over there. Is it a hotspot, which means supply has started drying out, demand is growing up, population is growing? Or is it a second wind, which means a comeback? Property which has grown, stabilized, and now it's coming back again. That's very important to understand in which market cycle am I before I can make that decision. So these indicators help in telling us what is my future prospect, what is my growth.
Yeah.
That is the first thing to understand more from a data perspective.
Data is king in a lot of this investing. And I think that's why it's good that, this listener at least is aware of, rental yield and things like those indicators of good capital growth. So that's a positive in your corner, shout out to you for actually having done a level of due diligence. But this decision isn't easy because, like you said, there are so many macro factors to it. It's
Absolutely. Yeah.
Those are not just the only 2 things we need to compare.
No.
So what's your advice to this person on how do they start?
Okay. So I'd first of all go at the macro level, understand these market indicators, which markets, and before that, do I want a hotspot? Do I want an early adapter? Property buying is a long-term investment.
Yeah.
We'll come back to later what are different phases of that. So in that, which market shall I go? All right. We're not talking about flippers. We're just talking about investors over here.
Yeah.
After we have done the macro analysis, then we take a step down. We come down. Let's say both of the properties are in the same region. All right. Good. Let's come down. Now, the next thing you do is a suburb analysis, which means it's a due diligence. I will start filtering out suburbs based on housing commission, based on floods, based on bushfire, based on vacancy rate, based on demographic. This will help me in start filtering out the unwanted or bad suburbs.
Yeah.
For example, if I take vacancy rate, if we know that any suburb that has at least 2.6 or 2% and below, that's a good hot market, which means the demand is strong over there. That takes us. So this due diligence we do at a suburb level, at a street level, and then at a property level.
Yeah.
So this will filter down to my property level, telling that, is this property, does it have an easement? Is it on a bushfire zone? Is it backing off a housing commission? All those factors. All right. Now, we've done the macro, we found the region, we filtered the suburb, the street, and the house. And next come, very important, what we call as cash flows.
Yes.
Okay. When we are referring to cash flow, it is very important because you don't want to buy a property that has only capital growth and you're bleeding by cash flow.
Yeah.
Which means that, all right, I can pump in a lot of money, but tomorrow, if you lose a job, then what's going to happen?
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, you have rainy money, you have buffer money for that, but then it's very important. And secondly, you just don't want a property with only cash flow and you don't see much capital growth.
Yeah.
So you got to have that balance between a capital growth and cash flow.
Yeah. It's super important. These are two different factors.
That's very important. It's because on a long term, properties grow. Everybody will say, you can buy anywhere, property will grow within 10 years, it'll double up. Great. But my idea when I work with clients is about the 80-20 rule. Like a business. 80-20 means 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clients.
Yep.
Basic. Similarly, I want that 60 to 80% growth in the first 2 to 4 years.
Yep. That's
very important. If you get that, and with your cash flow, you're a winner.
Well, yeah, because then you have options. That means that asset is working for your goal, right? You're generating that wealth or that return.
Yep.
But the hardest part, like you said, I like the comparison to a business because I see property investing very similar. It is a business transaction. You have a consumer that's going to rent it out.
Yep.
That's your target market, wherever you're purchasing. Once they're in the property, they're paying you a premium week by week, call it a subscription, and they're living in that property, and you are in charge of giving them good service, making sure the property is maintained. But in return, you're growing your wealth and you're growing your business.
Absolutely.
And year on year, it has to change.
And if I all in simple terms, your CapEx is your investment money, stamp duty, and your fees that you pay, they amortize, and your OPEX is your day-to-day maintenance.
That's right. So I love that. I love that you've used business as an example because it does put it in perspective of you're not just buying a house, like unless you're buying your owner-occupier home, very different strategy, very different mentality. Today's focus is more about the investment side. And investment, if you compare it to business and starting a business, you're doing the same fundamentals and comparisons. They just have different names and different due diligence and risk appetites. So it's very well answered. And I guess, in your opinion, do you need to understand whether the first, you mentioned region is being important, right, in this case. How does that change, if they are not in the same region? We've got the same factors that get compared again, right? So you're doing that whole comparison and it's, again, the same factors. How do you know which one to go with if those factors are different? What would be your data point or metric that tips one way or the other?
See, as I said, starting from a macro, if I'm seeing the population is very low, what is the government infrastructure doing over there? What are the economic activities? What are the future employment? For example, just doing some data analysis coming here, there's a great region in Queensland where we can see the population is growing up, the supply is falling down, and demand is going up over there. We can see that. Hello.
Yeah.
You come to NSW, there's another regional town in NSW that's got one of the biggest hospitals over there. We don't want to say the name, but I don't know. You talk about Albury. It's such a great region. You got Albury Wodonga together.
Yeah, they got it.
That's how we need to see what are the prospects over there. Is it a big town and they're like small towns around it? Same, NSW Victoria. There's another great suburb over the region where we have so many small regions around it. So that gives us the employment opportunities, economic activities. The government, if the government is investing in education, the government in health, we can see there's so much happening over there.
Yeah.
That gives me, now, there are more than 15,000 suburbs throughout Australia, right? No market grows forever, but we just need to see which region is great. Yeah, there might be same regions at the same time. Now, where do I invest? That's my call. And that's how we diversify our risk. We invest in different regions.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of having someone like yourself in their corner, because that decision making that this listener is, hopefully you're listening today and taking this all in, but you kind of get a picture of why a professional coming in and comparing this for you and doing the due diligence will actually really help you in this situation, because you're getting that direct comparison. But hopefully this gives you enough kind of information to kind of make that decision, because one of the things here is we've talked about that, the population growth, employment, infrastructure is a big one.
in my opinion. I feel like whatever activity and growth is happening around that suburb, like what are they putting in to drive more people to that suburb, to make it more popular, to give it that, demand if it's not quite there. And sometimes you see this in hotter markets, like you can see where the hot markets are already, that there's a lot of infrastructure. They're doing a lot of planning, tourism, like stuff to attract people to the area. The vacancy is usually very, very, very low. Whereas on these upcoming suburbs that are not quite at that level yet, I call them like warm spots or green shoot markets. That's another one that if you know how to pick that as a suburb, that's gold, in my opinion. But what's your kind of stance on that side of things?
Absolutely. As I said, what we call as warm or green shoot is the different types of markets we have. You can call it as a bell curve.
Yeah.
So we have the beginning of a market phase. Classic example is Sydney.
Yeah.
2018, it started growing, 19, 20, 21, now 26. It's kind of a bit of stagnant at the moment. But again, just because one or two suburbs are doing that, that doesn't mean the whole Sydney is doing that.
That's right.
I mean, we have still areas that have grown from 2018 to 2026 from 3 million to 18 million.
Shit. Far out.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wish you knew the green shoot in that market.
Yeah. So, right, we're getting a lot of talks in the market about policies, CGTs, negative gearing. They will be there. Things will come and go. But you just have to work out your way, identify those areas.
That's right.
Invest over there.
That's right. And I think that's a really important thing to call out is there's a lot of noise in the media. There's a lot of stories about how it's the hardest it's ever been to purchase. You can't purchase, or this policy's coming in. It's going to negatively impact investors. The biggest one at the moment is the CGT conversation and the fact that a lot of investors are probably going to get out. How true do you think that is?
It's a tricky question.
Well, without giving away, obviously, your opinion, but like how can people kind of distinguish what's noise and then what's reality for them?
Avoid barbecue conversations. Talk to SMEs. Talk to professionals. Have a good team around you. Good accountant, a good broker. Solicitors, you need them over there.
Yeah.
But if you have, and talk to people who have already invested.
Yeah.
That's a great conversation we had when I was in my office days. I remember a friend of mine wanted to invest, but he was getting advice from a guy who's been for 10 years here and has not invested.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the right person.
So coming over here, there are rumors happening. Yes. Even things like CGT happen or negative gearing happens, they might have an effect. But that doesn't stop one thing from happening, and that's growth.
Yeah, it's true.
Happened in New Zealand, 2021, back in 70s or 80s. Some policies were made, but then they were pulled back. They will always be there.
Yeah. And I think that's the other thing too. There's always going to be some sort of policy that comes into play. Positive or negative impacts will exist. It depends on strategy, though, that you have from the start.
Because when I work with my clients, I don't work on the basis of saving depreciation or saving tax.
Yeah.
We work with the prospect of wealth generation and growth.
Correct.
Yes, that 50% might get reduced to 33, 25 or 0. End of the day, it's growing. Your pie is becoming smaller, but you're still earning. It's better than doing something and doing nothing.
Yep.
Money sitting in the bank just deflates.
I can't talk about this enough. If you're someone with money in the bank and you're not using it to grow something, like as just an investment of sorts, like make the decision whether that is property or that is stocks or whatever your flavor is. But property is one of the oldest ways to make money.
Yeah. And the second thing, it's you can leverage.
Yeah.
10,000 invested somewhere gives you 20% growth. That's like $2,000.
Yeah.
And you use 50,000 or 60,000 as a deposit for a property for 500 on a lower scale. And that grows even by 5%. That's a big growth. Leverage.
It is. I've been talking, we're doing something in the background with a documentary, and I'm following the first investment property journey with my two cousins, 21 and 24. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting to see them go through this process. So much that they don't know, but also that they can't believe people don't have help when buying a property. One of the first comments they said is, do people buy property without an advocate because they're using an advocate? Because I said, you've got to use someone. And I said,
that's pretty normal. Yeah?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't. And they said, I don't understand how this works. Like, I thought people just buy by themselves. And I said, it's so funny that that's your opinion going through this process. And he said, oh, well, we just want guidance. It's like, how do we do this? I just don't think we'd ever do it. And this is where I'm so strong in that opinion of what you're sharing and what other advocates or any professional in this industry. We've all got a lot to say. We're doing this for a reason.
Yeah.
All right. We've either bought shit properties ourselves and now we're super passionate, or we see people making mistakes and it's like, that's avoidable.
And those are costly mistakes.
Yeah. You're playing with a lot of money to make those big mistakes. It's just not on. And I guess, I wanted to ask this one very specific question. If you look at this person's scenario, before we move on, how much does the age and condition of the property matter in this decision? Because like we've obviously talked about those macros where we're talking suburb level, big, small. Then we get down to that property level, right? Each individual property outside of data, we've got conditions, we've got the look, the feel, the functionality, floor plans. What are some of the things that I guess, how would you make that distinction if, let's say, everything was very similar or the same in terms of a suburb level for these two properties? When it comes down to the actual individual assets, what are we looking for?
All right. So before we started this podcast, you saw outside I was on the phone.
Yeah.
Similar situation. Having a chat with my client. And there were two properties over there, pretty much similar. There was a difference of age in the property. And then he said, which one would you go? I said, you know what, make a decision. Let's talk in an hour and I'll tell which one I think. I will never tell which one to go with, but if it was me, what to do. Now, if we look at the age of the property, it doesn't make a difference. But I'm not saying go and buy a 1920s property or heritage.
Yeah, okay. We'll make that really clear, everyone.
Yeah. So, see, age doesn't matter. The most important is the property good, solid foundation. Pest and building. That helps us in telling the foundation of the property. Are you buying a 3-bed or 1-bathroom or a 3-bed or 2-bathroom? It doesn't matter. Age is there, but should not be the only factor. I have seen even properties of 2015. I was buying them in Queensland. It had termites.
Yeah.
And I've seen property about 1990s, 98 to 2000. Good, low set brick, solid foundation. The rest is all cosmetic.
Can be changed.
And I tell to my clients, when you're buying a property, just keep 1% of the price of that property as maintenance. That takes your mindset away. Yeah. Not that you're going to spend $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 every year.
No, but it's there.
It's there as buffer money. And that takes away your mindset.
Yeah, I actually really like that as a tip because a lot of people react, and that's part of that cash flow management. It's reactionary. It's you have the property for 3 months and then the toilet breaks down. The property manager calls you and says, hey, we need to send a plumber. We need someone to go do this. And you haven't put a buffer away. That's a cost to you. That's a pain in the ass. You've made it a mess for no reason.
Absolutely. I mean, you're living in your house. I'm living in mine. I'm at times, if I'm busy, I can't do the gardens. I need to call somebody.
Yeah.
All right. I slam the door, the lock is broken. So it's a very common thing. You do maintenance in your house every second day, but every weekend you had Bunnings.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people love Bunnings.
So similarly, it's your investment property.
You got to do the same.
OPEX. You go back to that area again. It's a small maintenance. All right. Plumbing is not working. There's some issues. The flush is not working. Fine. I've put that money aside, but that growth overcomes everything.
It does. Yeah. And that's what you're ultimately looking for. It's not property costs to maintain it. You've got to have a maintenance cost factored into all of your investing for those properties because it's like your own home. Like you said, you would be at Bunnings every second weekend. In some cases, you have an idea. You're like, I'm going to do this really cool thing in my backyard. And then all of a sudden you're building and doing crap. It's the same kind of concept as that investment property is a property you own. So maintenance has to happen, facts. And I guess, in terms of like you mentioned that when you were buying personally, you had pre-approval up around, I think it was 720,000, but you ended up buying it around 610,000 because the property was like ticked all the right boxes. I want you to walk us through that decision because it's interesting that I think for a lot of people going, but you were approved for way more, you can buy a better asset. If you spend higher up, you can buy something that gives you bigger returns, better yields or whatever. I want you to talk us through that decision because this is, I think, tells a lot of data.
Happy to share my story. The two extremes to it. At times, buying cheap can be expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And always buying an expensive property doesn't mean it's a great property.
Yeah.
All right. I had my pre-approval of 720. Now, is the region good? Yes, growing. Suburb, great. Property, great. Not bad. Rental yields, amazing. So I bought a property for $610,000, where the rent was low at that time. But by the time I had to hold it on an old rent that was hardly $400 just for a month.
Okay, no.
Anybody would have gone, $600,000 property. Why shall I buy for a rent of $400? No, the rent was only for a month.
Yep.
So I was losing $200 for just 4 weeks. That's $800.
Mm.
It rented for $600
Nice.
straight away.
Nice.
Now, why shall I spend $120 extra until and unless there's a wow factor? It has a granny. Then I will go.
Mm.
If it's a normal 4-bed, 2-bathroom, double garage, ticking all the boxes, I would rather save that $120 for my next property.
I like that.
That's why people just overcapitalize and they get stuck over there rather than strategically thinking, what are my options?
That's so interesting when you put it that way. I can use that capital towards a second property.
Yes.
It's like just because you've been pre-approved for a higher amount, I think that's just a common consumer mentality of, it's like when you go to Kmart, you want to buy a pair of jeans, but, you also see that, one of the, like, I don't know, if you want to look at very dramatically, like Calvin Klein have a pair of jeans. The cost price is completely different, but you associate the value with Calvin Klein. And you think, well, I'll just max out my budget and go buy those. But Kmart jeans might give you 2 years of really good wear. Why
Absolutely. So if I'm not getting extra value out of that property, why shall I overcapitalize myself?
That's right. It's like and that's the other thing. It's like there's different factors that would tip that decision, I'd imagine. Like if you found a property that was at the higher bracket, it would be returning very different for you. But you saw the value in, no, let me buy less because I can use that additional approval for something else.
So 1 year down the lane, I've got 3 things with me now.
Yeah.
That extra 120, that borrowing capacity. Next year, I do not know. It's still there. It's gone up. Hopefully not down.
Hopefully not.
Within the next 1 year, the property has grown. I've got the equity. The third thing is my saving. So I've got these 3 things that compound for me to go for my next one.
Yeah, 100%.
That is very important coming to the very first basic step, portfolio mapping and strategy. What do I want to achieve?
And I think that's where all those decisions either support that strategy or not. Because if you have the wrong strategy from the start, that's not going to suit whatever the long-term goal is. You always start with the goal, I think, and then you work backwards from there with an advocate like you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, I guess it feels like such an important lesson what you explained, because I think that overcapitalizing is very rife in this market at the moment.
Yeah.
And, how should investors think about the difference between what the bank will lend me and then what actually makes sense for my strategy, sticking to the strategy topic? So how do you kind of walk your clients through the strategy from day one?
Work for strategy. My first question to my clients, why do you want to even invest? What's your end goal? Many clients come, I just want to buy one. Nobody will have an answer, I want 2, 3. They might come, but they're realistic or unrealistic. We do not know. But it's very important when you're talking to clients is understanding what is your end goal. It's difficult to say at times because who are realistic people? I want to buy one, and then if I can, I'll go for the second or third. That means we have room for growth.
Yeah.
So having a portfolio mapping and strategy session is very important so that we can reverse engineer to have the ability to buy a second or third property.
Yeah.
So that your first foundation property is very strong to move ahead. With that comes, yes, your bank has given you approvals, but then what are your financials and what are your cash flows? How much comfortable are you with this uncomfortable situation? I always say that to my clients, which means that I'm buying a property of $600,000 to $700,000 with my yield of maybe 4.5% or 4.3%. I'm paying around 12 to 15 grand out of my pocket. But that property on an average is growing maybe 6 to 7%. It's already made pretty much 50 grand by end of the year. And that is before tax.
Yeah, which is huge.
Yeah. So that's where we talk to our clients. Your financials, how much are you comfortable with the cash flows? What is your strategy? And what is your investment purpose?
Yeah.
That kind of gives them a sense to move ahead.
Because how many of your clients, I find this would be more seldom, know exactly why they're doing it? Like they know that they want to buy an investment. They've come across you. Maybe they've been referred. Maybe they've found you online. How much of them actually know how to generate that financial freedom by themselves?
A couple of them know, not all of them, because as I said, they listen to podcasts, stories, friends. The good thing is that they want to do it.
Yeah.
So that's the base over there. Some of them know how, some of them know how, but incorrectly, and some do not know how to do it.
Yeah.
So it's all about that partial knowledge. And that's how we guide them, we educate them to make that decision, how they can grow and use property as a tool for wealth generation.
And I like something that you said a few questions ago. You said, I don't tell my client my opinion or the decision I would make. I ask them to do that, and then I will share once they've made that choice.
Yeah.
Why do you do that?
See, the couple of things over here. I want my client to be confident. I don't want to take a property and just give it to them. This is it. They should be confident. They should make an educated decision over here.
Yep.
All right. Yes, it takes time in that for me to explain it to them. In that way, they are confident. Every decision will have good and bad. The idea is you want a decision with the least bad things in it.
Yeah.
And that's why the two properties, these are the metrics. These are the growth strategies. Sorry, these are the growth indicators for your strategy to move ahead to buy your next one.
Yep. It's actually so well said, to be honest, because it's true.
Why? Because clients are stuck on, I want 10 out of 10.
Yep.
No property gives you 10 out of 10.
This is a hard time.
I'll reverse my word. I won't say no property gives you 10 out of 10, but in a realistic world, 7 to 8 out of 10, you should go ahead.
I think this is so important what you just said. Everyone who's stuck on market for the nation average of 10.1 months not buying a property, it's the decision paralysis around need it to tick 10 boxes when realistically ticking 7 boxes is pretty good to make the decision. It's just all about your risk factors. Like, what are you actually taking into consideration? What are those 3 things that are missing? If it's in a flood zone, that's not something that I would take a punt on. And I don't think that's what Rishi's saying either. But what would be those, I guess you've got risk factors. What are those ones that you would kind of say, look, comfortably, these 7 things, if they're good, you're okay?
So I would categorize those 7 things across the whole process. I start, all right, will this area grow or not? Data gives me that confidence, minimizes my risk. Is this suburb good or not? Suburb analysis, demographic, population, unit versus, that gives me a suburb profile risk. That is this property in a safe zone or not? Due diligence checklist, fire, flood, oversupply, land size. That cares of that mitigates that risk. Once I've interest in the property, I put an offer. All right. Clauses like finance, pest and building saves me. So at every stage, there's a risk. As an investor, you have to analyze those risks, mitigate those risks, and have that residual risk when you move ahead.
Yeah.
That's a simple way of doing things.
I love it. And you've broken it down so clearly too, just in stages. It's like there is risk at every point. You just got to mitigate it.
Yeah. There's a risk. Will my property rent out or not? 1% vacancy rate. You have a queue outside of people to have your property for rent. They have not even settled and they have tenants. These are the kind of clients I've got.
Yeah, which is huge, because it's giving that confidence of, oh, okay, we'll get a rental.
Absolutely.
It'll just be about the right tenant. That's the next risk you got to mitigate and find out. So, and, this kind of brings me into story number 2. This is again, this is a listener question. Once again, we've saved a lot of these over time. So thank you to those who send these in. So they've said, I've owned an investment property for around 10 years and people keep telling me I should scale and buy another one. I'm not against the idea, but I don't actually know if I should. How do I know whether it's time to scale, hold, refinance, sell, or just leave things as they are? This is such a common situation, I think, because a lot of people that got into the market, call it 15 plus years ago, took that negative gearing approach for investing. They held a property for a long time.
And now there's a lot more discussion around advocacy and like scaling and, this generational wealth. And they've got an asset that they've sat with for a long time.
Yeah.
I guess if someone's owned a property for around 10 years like this person, what should they review before deciding to scale?
That's a great question, I would say, over here. And see, the important question is you should ask yourself, what's my end goal? Am I just investing because my friends are investing? Am I just investing because somebody just poked me that, hey, you've been sitting for 10 years? People invest for a couple of reasons. Some for financial freedom, some to have a portfolio, and some to leave a legacy for their kids. So that's very important that you have to ask yourself. And once you have decided, yes, I want to invest, then you should see, all right, we're not talking about first time investing. We're just saying, all right, this person has been sitting for 10 years. So he has his place of residence. So what's my loan amount at the moment? How much loan am I left on my property? What's my property value today versus 10 years back?
Yep.
Okay. What's my borrowing capacity, which changes as per your income 10 years back and now on? This helps us in bringing equity. Now, for those who do not know, classic example is what is equity and what is actual and usable equity. When we say equity, let's say I've got a property, my loan is for 1 million, my property value is 2 million.
Nice.
All right. My usable equity over here is $600,000. All right. Which means you take 80% minus the loan amount. 80% of 2 million is 1.6 minus 1 million. I've got $600,000 as a deposit. On a high level, 600,000 is a 20% deposit. I can create a portfolio worth of $3 million.
That's right.
That's leverage. So that is what somebody should ask in them. Similar scenario, somebody doesn't have that big deposit, but he still wants to buy. That means they want to go maybe for 4 million, right? So $600,000 less. So what they can do an LMI, which is
lender's mortgage insurance.
Absolutely. Which means where your loan is more than 80%, the banks want to protect themselves.
Yep.
And they will take for an insurance. The only benefit over here is that you don't have to wait for your saving because it's a double sword race, which means by the time you save and become that amount, property prices have gone up.
Yeah.
So these are the few financial things that you have to ask yourself before you think you can do a bit of your homework.
Yeah.
But if you do not know these answers, that should still not stop you to go ahead and talk to an advocacy, to talk to a buyer's advocate, a buyer strategist, or even to your broker.
Yeah, it's spot on because the finances are one thing there that you got to look at. And I think what this person might find is for 10 years, if they bought well in that property or in a good location and the asset's good, they've got options, probably some really cool options potentially in the market. And I think for someone like yourself, you're probably like, I can help this person make that decision. And, so I guess what's the difference between scaling because you have a clear strategy versus scaling because everyone tells you to buy another property? I guess because I feel like that's where a lot of people get caught. They think that buying another property automatically means they're making progress, but that actually might not be true if the next property stretches them too far or doesn't actually help the portfolio.
Having planning and strategy is always the basic of every investment. You need to have a team, as said, a good broker with you, a good accountant with you who makes that part. Again, the strategy is your property number one might be somebody's property number three.
Yeah.
So it's very important that you have this clear strategy that you do not end up buying in a market where you do not see any growth. So part of the process after strategy comes is you need to select a market where you can see the property growing and it's just not sitting there forever. That growth helps in creating equity, which equity later on helps for scalability.
Yeah.
Yes, you can save money, but can you save 50 to 100 grand in the next 18 months as compared to getting an equity in the next 18 months if invested properly?
Yeah, if invest, but that's the big question, right? If you invested properly.
And if invested properly, because you got to be very careful when and how you're investing.
No, it makes sense. And this leads me into how important is holding capacity, right, when someone wants to scale? So, and by that I mean not just whether the bank will lend them more, but whether they can actually afford to hold properties properly. Like that's through interest rate changes, that's through vacancies, repairs, and just general life events that might prevent it. How important is holding capacity?
All right. Holding capacity is important, but before you move to your next investment property, and I'll refer back to the point we talked about, that 1% for maintenance.
Yeah.
But even before that, when I tell my clients that they've got their first property, they want to go to the next one, you need to hold a buffer money the next 3 to 6 months. Depending, are you an aggressive investor or are you non-aggressive? Like, are you conservative, aggressive? What approach you're taking? In that way, you can hold cash flow for every property that you move on. You need to keep some buffer money aside. Second thing is having that 1% that becomes part of it. That's a part of the property that takes your mind away from maintenance.
Yeah. That scary hang up where, oh, that happened. Now what? It's like that's
classic example. Having a chat with a person, let's see if he signs up, how it goes. And when I talked about cash flows, he was surprised because he's got other investment properties. But when he bought them, he started getting all these bills. And he said he never took that into factor. And he got stuck over there because he was just thinking, how do I pay this bill? How do I pay that bill?
Oh, that's so stressful.
Exactly. And he had multiple properties.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not like a simple, he can put his wage into some of those fixes.
He had to end up selling.
Really?
Yes.
What a shame.
So that's very important. Example, people might go and buy, I've got 6 properties. There were 6 units. Great. I've got 6 properties now. There's 6 units. Units are not bad to buy.
Yeah.
They're part of your portfolio. Growth, again, depends where they are. But many of them don't factor. Maybe they're under strata.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That affects your fees. Like some states have land tax. Some do not. Some might have a higher insurance. This is very important. Borrowing capacity is one way of doing it, but then cash flows are very important. Can you sustain that property before you go to the next one?
Yeah.
Before you go to the third one, can I maintain these 2?
Because do you find when scaling, like this is just off the cuff question, that a lot of these investors that are succeeding at the moment in this space that maybe have 2 to 3 properties in their portfolio, are they using the equity from those properties to purchase the next asset, or are they mainly doing this some other way?
Well, I do not know what other way some people are doing.
Yeah. Like if they're just having cash or they've got an inheritance or they've been given a whole gift of money.
I would love to meet them first.
Yeah, me too.
See, I would say over here, forget about 2 or 3. We have people 8 to 10. I've grown my portfolio, and that's what I've done. It's how you can grow your property. That's very important.
Yeah.
Okay. Growing a portfolio takes 10 to 15 years. The first phase is acquisition. Buy as much as you can, as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
In the first couple of years. The next phase is stabilization, which means you've done the heavy work, heavy lifting. You've paid the deposit. You're paying the mortgage. And the economy is putting it up.
Yep.
When you see a property that you bought, classic example, bought from my client in regional NSW, October 2024, property for $550. End of last year, beginning of this year, it was already sitting for $700,000.
Wow.
They've got that equity to buy the next one. By the time they go to their third property, they have equity of 3 properties now. Their own house and 2 more investments.
Yep.
So, but every time it's like taking a step, making sure that you have that buffer money.
Yep.
And that's how it goes. That's how it multiplies. It's all compound.
Yeah, it's all compounded. It's all so it's all the strategy. Cash flow is a big thing, is what I'm getting from the lesson here for this person, whether it's that first property or that scaling, growing that portfolio. Cash flow is going to be your lever, whether you can or can't.
And that's one of the biggest problems with naive investors is they just go for it.
Yep, they do.
They just say, I'll also buy it. But no, you need to consider first, where are you putting your step into?
Yeah. Where are you actually getting it? How's it going to work? Are you going to get anything out of it? And then does it suit the 10-year plan or the 5-year plan that you have for that portfolio or the ambition?
Absolutely.
I think that's extremely well answered. And I guess, how does someone work out, whether they should hold, refinance, buy again, or even sell and reposition?
See, I do not know how others do, but part of our agency, what we do, once we buy a property for our client, we periodically review it.
Yeah.
I'll go back to the brokers or the financial institutions where they are. We see the market indicators are showing great. Some of our other sites, online platforms are showing us the property is growing. How is it growing now? What's the equity? Can you do it? So now, 8 months, 9 months, or 12 months down the lane, or 18 months down the lane, we say to the client, all right, the property has grown. You've got this equity. What do you want to do? You've got this equity. Buy another property, or what else can you do? Now, you have equity. Now you can make a decision what to do.
Yep.
That's very important. Second thing is, I've talked in another podcast and I'll repeat it here again. My example, I had my portfolio in New Zealand. 2021 was a prime time to sell. I didn't sell. Why? Because I thought it doesn't make sense to sell a property to buy a property.
Yeah, that's true too.
But it makes sense because 2024, it did not grow. So I lost that growth, that property not growing, cashing out that money, buying another one. Secondly, a lot of maintenance work was coming on that property. The roof had to be changed.
Oh, Jesus.
15 to 18 grand of work.
Oh, my God.
So, yes, it's very important. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't buy an old property.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where pest and building comes and shows how much bones are in that house.
And then what's going to come up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is where we evaluate your position and then we take a next step. That's what we do in our agency when we talk to our clients.
Yep.
Are you in the position to buy next one? Buy next one. All right, let's go back. And that's part of your acquisition, stabilization. Then comes the last, consolidation.
Yeah, which is putting it all together.
Absolutely. Down the lane, you sell 1 or 2 properties, bring your debts down, pay off your home loan as much as you can first. Some do not. That's their plan. And come to your investment properties. So acquire, hold, consolidate, rinse and repeat. Generate wealth.
No, that's awesome. I think this is going to be eye-opening for these two particular listeners, all of our listeners, of course, but these two in particular who wrote in. Thank you for both writing into the show. I love when I receive stuff like this because, one, it gives me content, but two, I get to unpack it with someone that knows, that live and breathes this stuff. So I hope that actually helps guide your decisions and guide, the questions you had. But if you want to talk more, just contact Rishi. It costs nothing to have a phone call. Just pick up the phone and ask the question, and say, here's the data. What have I done wrong?
Happy to help. Yeah. Happy to have a chat.
Of course. And so I think before we cap off this person's scenario, is there such a thing as someone owning a property for 10 years and still not being ready to scale? Because you would presume that there'd be a lot of equity after 10 years in that property, provided they bought well. Let's assume they have in this case, and there is a lot of equity. Is there ever a scenario where they wouldn't be ready or they shouldn't?
Yeah, they are. Fear.
Just not.
They're scared. You listen to a lot of success stories. Have you heard any horror stories?
No, success stories.
You go on
always.
Facebook, you go everywhere. This much equity, this much growth. You should hear about when things go wrong.
Yeah.
That's very important. Unfortunately, they are stuck in that dilemma now. Classic example, client of mine, we bought in our Albury. A year before that, they bought in an area in Sydney, buyer's agent, but they bought a townhouse.
Yeah.
Now, it did not grow, obviously.
Yeah.
They had the capacity, they wanted to grow, but they were stuck and they were scared. And that's when I said, yes, you got something, but it wasn't right. I said, unfortunately, you were not guided properly. And
That's
as I
awesome.
say, people they fear and they're scared of messing up than missing out. Because for 10 years, they have got this equity, this wealth, this super. They don't want it to go down the drain.
No.
That's the reason. Either they've heard horror stories, close one has had a bad experience, or they've had a bad experience.
Yeah.
And people don't share bad experiences so often.
No, and I often say on this show, bring the horror stories because we can unpack them. You can learn from them because you learn more from a horror story than you do the success. It's always the lessons that someone wish they had have learned or known before they made the mistake. And that's exactly why we're here. It's how do we avoid you who's sitting in this position of choosing between two properties or whether you scale one property after 10 years, you've got to know exactly what you're dealing with before you make a fear-driven decision. And, I guess for anyone out there, you've kind of given us a final thought, but just for someone in this position, what would be a sensible next step before they make any property decisions, where this is like, final advice to our listeners. If they are going to start their portfolio, scale portfolio, no matter what, what's your advice to these people who are just thinking about investing and don't know what they're doing?
See, it's very important. Yes, you should take in help from an SME, but it's not stopping you from doing yourself. But the most important thing is you should ask yourself in terms of, do I want to invest? Am I ready for investment? Great. Why not? You should. Even if you're doubting yourself, I say you should. Then look at your financials yourself. Look at how much savings you have. For the next 6 months, how much you're doing. What are your numbers saying? What is your equity? Do not neglect cash flow. Do not neglect due diligence. These are some very key important things. And even if you're 1% ready, go and talk to somebody. It's very important.
I love that. Great way to wrap up this episode. We can't let you go just yet though, Rishi. We have our bullshit statement of the day that we need to figure out. At the start of this episode, we read out our No B.S. statement, and it was, if the numbers stack up and the bank says you can afford it, that's enough reason to buy or scale. Rishi, final verdict, is that bullshit or not bullshit?
All right. I can't say anything against the bank over here.
You're like, I'm just going to be quiet.
See, the basic fact is that the bank's job is to lend you money.
Yeah.
Not to protect your wealth. All right. When I say not to protect your wealth, that don't take in the far extreme. When I say, yes, there are some banks who do lending based on postcodes and all that stuff. They will not just lend to everybody.
Yeah.
When I say they are not doing a due diligence, they are not saying, are you buying in a hotspot or a declining market?
Yeah.
They're here.
They're looking at the numbers.
They're doing your debt to income ratio, borrowing capacity, and they'll lend you the money.
Yeah.
That's what banks are there for. They help us. So when you say numbers are stacking up, you need to see the data of the past builds a trajectory for future. That's very, very important. And smart investors are different over here. As I said, they look at cash flow. They look at due diligence. They look at market phase. They look at what's my next step. Where do I invest in so that I can go further?
And it makes a difference for sure. Like I think everything you've talked about today, Rishi, will really open a lot of people's eyes into the way, the thinking. I think that's what's important here. It's the thinking behind it all.
As it, banks giving you affordability or pre-approval money, it's like a green light to go ahead.
Yeah.
But how do I go ahead? That comes to strategy, investing, acquisition, and research.
Yeah. So I guess then that statement is probably bullshit. It's like it's not enough.
No, absolutely not enough.
All right. I love it. It's bullshit. Rishi, thank you so much for coming on the show and for meeting me in person. We've talked for a while now, and I love when I got to come to Sydney to do this with you in person for the first episode, first of many, I'm sure.
I'm honoured for that.
No, I'm really, really honoured myself. And congratulations again on your award and just for sharing your wisdom. I think it's really nice to have professionals that are willing to come and give value on this kind of show. And I usually use this podcast as a platform to say, if I have them on the show, I back them, I vet them, because that's the measure I want to have for people listening. And I want you guys to be reassured that if I've got someone here, it's someone you can trust and work with. Trust me. I won't have shit on the show. But Rishi, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's been lovely over here. It's been great having you as my host.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And for those of you tuning in, thank you for always listening. If you want to connect with Rishi, his details are on screen and in our show notes below. And like I always say, it costs nothing to pick up the phone and have a conversation. Just start somewhere. Like Rishi said earlier, even if it's just 1% ready to go, that's where you get help. So thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you to those 2 special listeners who submitted their stories and were so open with us, and thanks, Rishi, for unpacking them with us today.
Oh, good.
All right. We'll catch you next time on the No B.S. Real Estate Podcast. You're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Please share this with a mate who's thinking about investing. Don't let them make a mistake. Tell them to open their mouth, talk to someone. We'll catch you next time on the No B.S. Podcast. Bye for now. That's a wrap for this episode of the No B.S. Real Estate Podcast, powered by Abodi AI. If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need it. If you're looking for more guidance on your home buying journey, you can visit www.abodi.com.au for expert advice, property insights, and the tools you need to find the right home with confidence. If you're already on your journey, you can also download our app. Just search Abodi AI on the App Store or Google Play. Have any questions or want to connect, you can follow us on Instagram at abodi.com.au or send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.